the amount that you can see, the amount of gain you can see is going to be incredible. I mean, people often say there's a shortage of math and science teachers. You know, and you can pick any city, they'll say there's a shortage of math and science teachers. You go to that same city's Craigslist, and what do you see? An explosion of math and science tutors in private companies. The teachers are there. It's just that, you know, a lot of people want to be in a free kind of innovative environment, and those people, those sort of idea creators, are the very people that are being turned off currently by the public school system because they don't want to be part of that bureaucracy.
Right. Now, we've seen on your website about your whole gun law issue. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, there's a when you look at what you need to do in politics, one of the things is a lot of times people like to use emotional leverage for political gain. Simple example of this, you know, the Republican Party has clearly been doing this with gay marriage, and they recognize that a lot of people are not comfortable with gay marriage, and they're just they're leaning on that as much as they can, trying to create as much emotional leverage as they can to keep people who might actually vote, you know, Democrat or vote Libertarian, keep them on the Republican side.
Exactly.
And to me, that's manipulation. I don't think that's the way politics should be done. I think you're seeing the same actual thing on the Democratic side with the gun issues. When you ask a person, you know, what's the most common cause of gun death? People say, yeah, murder maybe. Some people say, you know, accidents. I mean, because that's what's portrayed so often, especially the accidents. And the worst, like the ultimate nightmare for any person is like, you know, a child accidentally getting you know, their child. I mean, it's such a vivid and such a scary image to people that it's something that you can very easily use for leverage. Fact is, the most common cause of gun death is suicide. Out of the 30,000 gun deaths a year, 18,000 are suicides. If you look at the number of accidents, total gun accidents in America is about 1,000. Now, if you want to compare that just you know, for what does that mean? What does 1,000 even mean? When you compare that to, for example, accidental deaths from medical error, and I don't mean, you know, a person had a terminal illness and died. I mean just some nonsense that could have been avoided. There's 3,000 deaths from that. There's 15,000 deaths a year from falls. So it's an issue that to me has just been blown out of proportion for emotional leverage. And so when you look at this, I mean, I think that our gun policy has got to be based on facts. And while we can say something to the effect of, you know, even if it saves one life, I mean, to me that's ridiculous. I mean, if you really want to save one life, we can just shut down. Like we have 45,000 deaths a year in traffic. I mean, if we just got rid of our roads, I mean, it's the idea of like, you know, what are you willing to pass up? So the question is, what's the gain? I mean, is it just people just want to go shoot stuff? Well, in reality, if you look at the number of times a gun is used to protect somebody, Carlin, the statistics say somewhere between 800,000 on the low end and the high end 2.5 million times a year, somebody protects themselves with a gun. The reason that a lot of times that number has been unreported is because a lot of times the gun doesn't need to be fired. They just pull out the gun. They just wave the gun. And so it's served its purpose so well that it hasn't even shown up in the police report. Nobody got shot. You know, all the violence was avoided by the presence of this gun. I mean, I saw a cartoon one time that had a picture of, you know, what would have happened on the 9/11 plane if everybody's armed, and you see, you know, this group of terrorists and, you know, 50 guns pointed. You know, I think there are gains from an armed citizenry as long as that citizenry is using those weapons in a responsible way. I mean, we already have laws against murder. You see what I'm saying? We already have laws against assault. Having laws against essentially self-defense, to me, is ridiculous. I mean, I just want to share one story. A friend of mine's mom, when she was in graduate school, she came home one day to her apartment, and there was a guy outside of her apartment, very drunk, kind of belligerent, and came on to her in a way that made her feel very uncomfortable. So the next day, she's bought a gun. Now, here's the thing. If a guy's there on Monday, what's to stop him from being there on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? And this is why I don't really think that 5-day waiting period make a lot of sense. I mean, sure, if you're like a big, strong guy, maybe you can wait 5 days, but not everybody can wait 5. There are times when, and you know, she is a poor graduate student. She called up the police and said, yeah, I need a round-the-clock guard. They'd have laughed at her. I mean, they're not going to, you know, the police is not going to provide private security for everybody who asks for it. So there are times when you need to allow people to do the kind of self-defense that they, as adults, see fit.
Now, another controversial type of issue is definitely the drug use, or legalization of some of it. What is your ideas on that? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me say I'm opposed to drug use. I don't use drugs myself. Actually, I don't even drink for that matter. But at the same time, you know, I still have the ability to see what I call hypocrisy. I mean, if you look at the medical evidence or you look at the legal evidence, whatever evidence you look at, there's a very clear suggestion that marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol in a lot of ways, maybe in every way. And when you have one of those being illegal because it's unfamiliar and one of those being legal because it's familiar, to me, that creates a dangerous situation. I mean, our jails are, it's the most common reason that a person's in jail right now is nonviolent drugs.
Right.
And that to me is, I mean, that's 60% of people, and to me that's unconscionable. I mean, to put a person in jail for a year costs $60,000 a year. Now, you know, that's enough to send 3 kids to college.
Right.
I mean, it's a ridiculous, you know, just misdirection of uses. So really, what I view as the appropriate thing to do is I think that marijuana at the very least needs to be legalized. I don't see any reason why we need to keep. And right now, it's also being used as kind of an excuse. I mean, it's not an equally enforced law. I mean, if you want to crack down on marijuana, you know, my college Brown, you can go there probably any weekend, any Friday or Saturday, and you can do a crackdown on some, like, you know, wealthy Ivy League kids. But they don't.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? They don't do that. That's not what I mean. That law is just randomly, just, you know, biasly applied to such an extreme extent. It's. I mean, it just blows my mind that we even have that law today.
Right.
It's enforced unfairly. It's extremely expensive. I mean, as much as the war in Iraq and Afghanistan is to me not a particularly smart use of our funds. I mean, we're spending a lot more on our war on drugs than we spend on any war. We spend more on the war on drugs than we spend on World War II. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're still doing this. You know, sometimes people say, well, what about all the people who work for enforcement agencies or work for police? You know, wouldn't we have less than, wouldn't there be unemployment? And to me, A, I don't really think that that's a reason to go around locking people up, but B, there are real crimes that we can deal with. I mean, if we want to have a war on something, let's have a war on theft. You know, let's have a war on something that actually affects somebody else. If you look at the maximum penalty for theft, which is grand theft, if you steal a car, you steal a Hope Diamond, or steal whatever, the maximum penalty for that is 12.5 years. The minimum penalty for drug trafficking is 10 years, and it goes up to life.
Right.
So that means that in the eyes of the law somehow, just put that in perspective, it is worse somehow. Like, for me, it would be worse if one guy sold another guy drugs. That would be worse to me somehow than if somebody came and sold my car. I mean, that to me just is ridiculous. I mean, the direction we're using our law enforcement right now is ridiculous, and I really think it needs to be changed.
Mr. Vohra, it's been a pleasure.
Nice meeting you, and thank you for interviewing me.
Not a problem. And for more information about Mr. Vohra, please visit his website at votevohra.com. And for all other information, please visit our website on thehillmedia.com.